It still doesn't prove your sky daddy God raised from the dead. Nikki, under your comments, had a marvelous point. Did the disciples see undeniable proof? Is there undeniable evidence to support that? One, for example, could have hallucinated or mistaken someone for a risen Jesus, and the others could have been convinced or urged to see similar things happen, to be more open to interpret things as being Jesus. And people might have misheard someone at some point, or the story changed over time as people told it to each other and may have forgotten some minor details, and may have interpreted the stories as being something they're not because of their beliefs. So the historical agreement is that it is impossible for so many people to have so many livid hallucinations to explain the conviction of the disciples and early Christians. It's a funny and goofy hypothesis, but not even intellectually honest atheists take it into account. The apostles' willingness to be killed, not for saying they believed Jesus had risen, but they knew he had risen, because the proof was they saw him. If the tomb wasn't empty, they would have paraded the body around to stomp out any idea of Jesus being resurrected. But Christianity spread because the event that historically happened, not just because a book told you so. There was no body in the tomb. If someone stole the body, why were nearly all the apostles willing to be killed for saying they seen Jesus risen? They were thousands of miles away from one another before phones and the internet, and were being threatened, tortured, and murdered for the claim. Not one broke and said it was a lie to save themselves. Alex O'Connor even spoke on this as well. Look at this. Let me see.
How do we explain the fact that this man gets crucified by the Romans, and then people claim to see him after he died, and were willing to be put to death for that belief?
Good heavens.
Now, okay, maybe he didn't die. Unlikely. As they say, the Romans knew how to kill people. And supposedly, they check. Okay, so likelihood is that he was actually crucified. And then a few days later, people are claiming to see him. Maybe they're lying, but then you don't tend to go to death for something you know to be a lie. You're willing to be put to death for things that you think are true, that are false, but very rarely are people willing to die for beliefs that they don't actually believe themselves. That doesn't really happen. So they probably weren't lying. As maybe they were mistaken.
Fooled.
Or maybe they were hallucinating. In groups,